Oh hey, welcome to Sonic Riders DX. You can just call me Stent. Admittedly, I'm starting this out a little bit differently because, honestly, starting off it wasn't entirely certain as to how to go about doing this, so I'm thinking for this mostly just showing off the content suite, though granted it's not that much different from the base game, and possibly trying out both the World Grand Prix and, obviously, if we get time for it, the story modes, though I suspect there won't be too much different about those. Let me just switch it off for the time being, and let's get started. It's almost like there's some semblance of professionalism going on, which is definitely a new one for me. Obviously, just booting up the game, we get no intro, just cut straight to the main menu here. Just want to quickly just give me a second. For some reason, it just wasn't picking up my controller. I will admit, with the connection I've got with it seems to have been on the brink a little bit recently. Hopefully, I can get something done in order to amend that. But we'll just start off with just a standard normal race, as you can see. I also included the texture pack that comes with it, which comes, of course, with new animations for a lot of the menu options, which, to be fair, are just the same one. I mean, it is very well done from a stylistic standpoint. You can obviously tell it's fan-made, but at the same time, it does have its charm to it, I will say. Anyways, let's go into free race. As you can see here, obviously nice, fancy new portraits for all the tracks. I think we'll just start off. I mean, obviously this means that a lot of the areas have also been rejected. Like, look at Splash Canyon, for instance. We'll get to that, but I think first off I want to go to Babylon Garden. As you can see here, you've got a whole bunch of songs to choose from, which you just select by pressing that specific direction on the D-pad when you start up. Honestly, I think it's best if I save Babylon Garden for last. We'll start off with Sega Carnival, I think. And as you can see, we've got all these characters here. Everything's unlocked basically when you start up, so you don't have to worry about mission mode or anything. I mean, you can still do it, though I don't think it's necessarily tuned to a lot of the changes made to a lot of the gears, and honestly, you already have everything unlocked from the start, so there's not really much point in doing so, so I won't be doing it, thankfully. It also means we have 3 new characters down here, unique to DX, which of course a speed, flight, and power character. We have Metal Sonic, the Eggman's greatest jobber. We have Chaos, specifically Chaos Zero, and this guy. I haven't really heard of him before. Also, at least a little tidbit which I found is that if you hit the Y button, at least on controller, you get different palette ults for each character. So we have a few references here, like we have Robo Sonic, we have Mecha Sonic, and we have Mecha Shadow. And for Chaos, we have Hero Chow, another version of Hero Chow, and Dark Chaos Chow. There are definitely some interesting little Easter eggs with a fair few of these particular skins. Like, I think this one is supposed to be Hatsune Miku. Admittedly, I'm not 100% familiar with a lot of the references to Monkey Ball here, so feel free to let me know what I missed in the comments. Also, nice that they actually got a little emblem aside some of the names to show. Hey, these are from Space Channel 5, Monkey Ball, and Nights into Dreams. Funny little mime outfit. I quite like this outfit for Nights, even though it's kind of weird him having actual, like, fleshy, peachy skin. Shadow, of course, we have Mephiles, as well as the yellow Shadow android from the multiplayer of Shadow. Rouge, I think this is, I forget her name, but she's from... I know she's from Marvel vs. Capcom, at the very least. One of the Marvel fighting games. Darkstalkers, I think, is the one. She's... I think her name is Lilith. You'll have to forgive me on that one. Cream, obviously, I think this is supposed to be a reference to Marine. A few of these are a little lost on me, unfortunately. Obviously, here we have E10000B from Sonic Free Riders. We have the Egg Pawns from Heroes. We have Eggman Nega here, which is a nice little touch. I think this is supposed to be Techno from Fleetway. Again, some of these will be lost on me. We have Storm, who I think has some of the more obvious ones. Here we have Big, and we have the Werehog. Jets. I mean, I do definitely like that one. That one's pretty cool. Amy, I think that's supposed to be Honey, as well as a few others. And Knuckles, Tikal, obviously. Maybe Finitidus? And Chaos Knuckles, I'm presuming. Tails. I think that's supposed to be a reference to a particular glitch palette. I mean, that particular color palette is basically my favorite one, as you could probably tell, and honestly, I kind of like that one as well. And Sonic, of course, Scourge. Just Scourge. And I'm guessing these ones have their own particular references to them, but again, lost on me. I kind of want to come out of here a little bit before we go back in and just have a look at some of the gears. I figured I may as well cover all my bases here. Also get actual music on the start title, and I quite like how it looks, this little space feel. Sort of makes it feel like we've gone beyond the original Riders. Let's go into extras. I don't think there's too much here, which is different. Like, yeah, these are basically the same as far as I can tell. What I want to go into is the gear gallery, because of course these aren't changed, but some of the stuff attributed to them are. Like, basically all the standard gears right here have been changed to effectively be actually sort of viable competitively. I think that's mostly what the goal was, to take every single gear here and try to have it fill a role or a use. Here it's mostly immune to ice physics, so basically it's very good on Ice Factory. High Booster, I don't think has really seen much changes. Auto Slider, I haven't really played around with too much. Rapid Drift Dash, though, there's a lot of more technical stuff here, more technical terms, which I think is more so to better translate what the gears actually do. Like, powerful gear here, unaffected by rough terrain. Fastest, highest top speed with powerful drifts. Turbo Star. This one's pretty interesting, actually being the only gear here to have a level 4, as opposed to everyone else having a level 3. You can also tell here that all the characters can just use pretty much all the gears. Even Eggman, which is kind of surreal. Speed Balancer is basically what it was. High edge boosts speed and drift power, sacrifices turning ability. Blue Star 2. Boost chain modifier. Basically, again, more technical terms. Also, I think that the stats may have been changed up a little bit as well, at least on here. Obviously, with the texture changes, the gear changes and how the stats work is translated a little bit differently, as we'll see. The access, fly types fly faster, so yeah. Even skill gears like these, which you'd normally have on characters that don't have a particular type, do benefit the types that they normally not be used by, which is a nice little touch. You're the strongest drift dash. There's a lot of these that I definitely want to play with. Gains rings passively for a powerful boost. That's pretty interesting, actually. There's a whole bunch of stuff in here which has been turned into what the game calls ring gears, which is basically what it sounds like. Stuff like the Crazy and the Super Form and the Chaos Emerald. I'll get to the Super Form a little bit later, but basically they use rings instead of air. Trap Gear, which cannot boost but triggers tornado boosts. That's a nice little gimmick. Light Board, which I was kind of worried that this one would just be nerfed into the ground in this particular mod, but it seems as though they've just sort of taken its mechanics from the base game and just sort of run with them, which is kind of neat. Sorry, it's just I just noticed that once again my particular setup seems to hate my microphone, so should be back to normal now. Anyways, Slide Booster can execute consecutive drift dashes. A lot of these definitely do seem kind of gimmicky. As you can see by how the stats have changed, they at least try to make up for it. Of course, the Legend, nice little tidbit about the Legend actually, which I noticed while I was playing around with it. I think it's along with the other mission mode gears, don't have the penalty of not being able to regain air in any way, shape, or form, so they're actually usable. The Magic Carpet, which high acceleration, poor cornering. I do like the sort of justification it gives for it, though, considering it's a prototype. Can execute tornado boost at a low air cost, so it's basically like a better version of the Trap Gear, question mark. Hovercraft, which amazing stats permanently on icy terrain, so it's again a lot more blunt about what it does. Of course, we have the Chaos Emerald, which, as you've noticed, can actually be used by more people than just Sonic, including Amy. So yeah, we'll get into that a little bit later. The Faster gains air passively. A lot of these just seem to be fun to play around. The Gambler, I think I neglected to mention this while in my initial playing through. The Gambler is basically the gear you use in order to grind out rings for all the stuff that you normally get in the shop. Actually, I did go over it before, didn't I? How it basically just doubles the rings you finish a race with if you win. Lower deceleration boosts more often. Again, just a lot of stuff that I feel compelled to just play around with, either here on my own time. The Crazy boost speed, even though it has no dash. Short boost duration for more frequent boosts. And of course these are just more base models, and now we're getting to this, the Berserker. I don't think I went over this. It's arguably one of the more interesting gears, gimmick-wise. How basically, if you're above 3/4 of your air gauge, you automatically go into a boost, and you just retain that boost until you drop below the 3/4 mark. It's kind of fun to play around with, and more so just rewards good air economy, good air management, basically. E-Rider doesn't seem to have too much change. Air Tank gains air passively. Level up increases boost cost dramatically. Yeah, it seems with some of these bikes, they have a lot of differences when they actually level up. I feel that's a big thing, actually. You mean the Berserker, was it? I'll have to go back and check. Anyways, hey BZ. I was just going over all the various gears before we actually get stuck in. This one's definitely quite interesting, though, how it acts really good, being very fast at level 1, but sacrifices boost speed for efficiency at later levels, so it sort of becomes more of a balancing act as you go on, which is kind of an interesting gear mechanic. Yeah, I definitely imagine. It's, like I said, it's the one which rewards good air management. Destroyer, which high stats for high costs. Gain speed when breaking objects. Not entirely certain what the costs would be, but definitely sounds perilous. The Omnipotence, reduced air gain from type shortcuts. Ah, I think the Omnipotence also didn't get air back from type shortcuts normally. Here it's just keeping that in mind, but it being a bit more usable. Oh, I didn't notice this when I went through this. Hold boost to continue boosting. It's basically the Sonic Unleashed gear. Gotta play around with that at some point. Enters boost after performing a drift dash, but cannot boost. Ooh, that definitely sounds fairly perilous. Uses rings to fuel higher speed with more rings. So again, this is another ring gear. It seems like with these particular types of gears, they went a little bit more gimmicky. I think that's also the same thing from these particular gears, so it's not just that they get special songs, but they actually have their own unique attributes to them. A powerful boost for a high cost, gains air from pits much faster, no air gain from most sources. Wow. That definitely seems kind of risk-reward in that regard. I'm guessing with how this is set out, it's more so expected for you to play with air pits on, because I know that's something you can change out in the options normally. Of course, the darkness performs boost rapidly, generates more speed. So it's more so they retain flow as opposed to just being generally good with air economy. Lower boost cost speed types grind faster. That's actually pretty neat. Advantage S. This one's actually a pretty fun one. Running gear. High performance burns too much air. Basically, with this, you're going to end up running fairly often, and despite that, it's actually pretty good in that regard. You do get, I think, a pretty fast running speed. Increased speed for landing tricks, strong drift dash, so the F gears definitely seem to be more geared for drifting. Gain speed based on missing air, and the cannonball, which in the original game kind of sucked. Here it's at the very least been given a little bit of a niche with its high turning ability. And that's all of them, so without further ado, let's actually get into a race and see what we can manage, because there's a few more which the gallery doesn't show you, because I don't think you're normally expected to go in there. We're just going to go for a normal race, just to showcase everything. Sega Carnival. And I think we'll start off with, you know what, Metal Sonic. We'll go with the classic Sonic 3 look. And fun, yeah. Also, fun fact, all three characters here have their own unique version of the default gear. And also, fun fact, if you press the Y button, you can basically pick whatever one you want. So, if for instance I went Mecha Shadow, oh yeah, basically everyone gets their own version of the standard board, even Shadow here. So, the black shot. Actually, that does look pretty cool, so we'll just Select Special Stage Act 2, and this should load up the particular song that we're going after. This is Special Stage Act 1. Also a quick side note with regards to the added characters, they basically all reuse animations from other existing characters. It's most notable with Metal Sonic here, who basically just has, at the very least for a starting animation, basically just all of Shadow's animations. Also, fun tidbit here, when you go onto these sort of set pieces, you don't have to steer the control stick like crazy to gain air. You just gain it as though you were the maximum. Yeah, here, again, Metal just uses all of Shadow's animations here, even when he's crouched down to do his little chaos fart. At least I'm assuming that's what it is. Also, you may have noticed, even though we're in Free Race, there's nobody here. That's mostly because, from my understanding, Free Race has mostly just been designed mostly for the online multiplayer, as of course this is a ROM hack, which you can only realistically get at this moment, I believe, on Dolphin or some other mods, if there is a PC version for it, which I'm not entirely certain there is. So it makes use of Dolphin's very own sort of online net play in order to play other people online. So the main tidbit here is to just make it so there's no AI on here, so it can truly be a one-on-one experience. Also like the fact that all the new characters actually get their own unique trick names. As you can probably tell, aside from some particular set changes, like the fact that there's no dash rings here, yet they've been moved to the start of the level, aside from a couple of shortcut changes, the general map layouts are mostly the same. And I think with that, I think now is a good time to start moving on to the Grand Prix. We can come back to all the ones which aren't available to us a little bit later, but for now, World Grand Prix. We're going to start off with just the Heroes Cup, and I think now might be a good time to showcase the super forms, because they do work fairly differently compared to normal. Like, weirdly enough, I didn't actually expect Ulala to get the their own super form. Yeah. Thing is, as far as I know, basically everyone aside from Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Amy, Shadow, and Metal Sonic who have super forms don't get any sort of model changes. Even though I'm fairly certain that there were at least super forms, or at least proper super forms, planned for the Babylon Rogues. I believe they call them astral forms, though I don't think my version of the game has them implemented yet. In any case, I think this might be a good idea to... You know, let's start off fairly simple. With the one character we unlocked in the last part, Supersonic. As far as I'm aware with regards to Supersonic, stat-wise he seems fairly unchanged in terms of what he does at the very least, though obviously with how stats work in this particular version of the game it's a little bit different. Also, look at Chaos there with just a little board that's literally just made of water and rocks. I will admit I definitely had a hard time actually finding Tournament Edition, though with what I have planned I don't think we'll be seeing that particular mod, at least for a little bit, because I was planning on just moving on to Final Fantasy VII next. Nice little tidbit about Supersonic though is that ring consumption generally has been reduced, or at least slowed, so it's not quite Generations tier of ring drain, so you can actually afford to get away with some stuff. Mostly to make up for the fact that, as you can probably notice, there aren't any 100 ring capsules anymore. Mostly just put in place so that it's a little bit more fair and balanced for multiplayer, because of course, in the base game, you'd have that one player who just, at the start of the match, just gets the 100 ring monitor and just steamrolls the competition for the most part. So look at this, I actually feel as though I can afford to just get away with boost with Supersonic. And my rings just all don't instantly disappear when I put off a drift. It's definitely quite nice. Also a nice little tidbit that I noticed is that with the super forms, at least with with the super forms, you do get rings back from air capsules, which is just a very, very nice touch. What you may have noticed, my little coattail here is purple compared to the usual blue, green, and red. That's a small mechanic which they've added so that you basically don't get... You can just switch that on so you don't get picked up by turbulence, as far as I am aware. It's generally just a neat little touch, which admittedly was a small grievance I had with the base game about how you, if you are in last place, and if you wanted to go a particular route, like to take a shortcut, you'd just get picked up by the turbulence and you'd be out of luck. Not so much here, it seems. Also, yeah, it's this place. You know this place all too well. You're sick of it, I'm sick of it. Though, granted, this was released, at least the actual base game itself, in the era where seeing this place was still kind of a neat little novelty. Like, hey, it was neat seeing this place in, like, Sonic Battle, Adventure 2, possibly Sonic Advance 3 with Sunset Hill. Obviously nowadays it's like everyone's sort of sick and tired of this place. Which is kind of weird. I mean, I definitely get it. I'm sick of Green Hill as well, but I will be honest, in terms of art style, even though it's definitely one of the most, I suppose, out of place among some of the various other tracks, I wouldn't mind if the series as a whole had an art style like this. I feel that's sort of something that a lot of people have sort of struggled to articulate, that about not wanting the series to be overly cartoony, though. Then again, we got Frontiers, which was more sort of a depressing nightmare. And we're just left with the situation where we can't make up our minds. I will say, though, I don't think these sort of highly stylized environments would be so bad if it was more places than Green Hill and Chemical Plant. If we got some more unique areas, I think most people wouldn't have an issue with it. It's sort of one thing that I would definitely like to see in future, just more areas which aren't afraid to just have fun with their themings and not just call back to existing ideas, like even something as simple as Frozen Factory, which I know is a level some people might like, but even then it's just like, here's Metropolis Zone again. Even though we don't want to see Metropolis again, nobody likes Metropolis Zone. Also, I think just going into the Grand Prix mode, a lot of the tracks here are just more sort of randomized, which at the very least does a fair bit to make racing on these tracks multiple times a bit more bearable, as you aren't just listening to the same track over and over again. It's a sort of addition that seems kind of obvious, but is definitely welcomed. Yeah, I definitely get that, BZ, but at the same time, I can't help but feel a lot of the time a lot of Sonic fans just sort of default to various buzzwords. Like shonen is the obvious one, and peak is another one, whereas me personally, a term that I would personally use is earnest. I probably mentioned it before, but I definitely miss the earnesty this series once had. Like where you could have sort of heartfelt conversations about Sonic telling Merlina that death is inevitable and you should just do the best you can with the time you have. In the same game where Sonic just fights a big dragon by waving a sword in it and Knuckles tries to stab himself. It's like you could have all these ridiculous scenarios and yet still take it seriously because it was heartfelt, really. It wore its heart on its sleeve, and even if it was ridiculous, it owned it, is what I would say. As opposed to nowadays, where even with the likes of Flynn, it's a fair bit more cynical, which is something that I wouldn't really attribute to this series. Or at least, if there's one thing which I'd say doesn't belong in a Sonic game, above all else, it's cynicism. Maybe just me being sick and tired of seeing that sort of thing in all forms of media nowadays, but where am I going? What am I doing? There we go. So I just got so into what I was saying that I lost focus of the race. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, BZ, but at the same time, I can't help but feel that that's just going to become yet another buzzword that Sonic fans just bring up, because apparently articulation is hard. I will say I definitely do like a lot of the music picks here, but at the same time, I can't help but feel that maybe it would have been better had a lot of the music tracks been more sort of stuff which came out either around or before this game came out, just to sort of feel more at home, because it definitely seems weird having Sonic Unleashed tracks in here, a game from 2008. Well, at least you're willing to admit it, and like, I'm sure a fair few fans are just sort of stuck in their ways, I believe. But at the same time, saying that, I can't help but wonder whether or not I'm just stuck in my ways here, just ready and willing to just go back to enjoying my own little corner of the franchise, which is just all the GameCube and Wii games. Like, that's still a fair few games to choose from, so I don't think I'd be really wanting for choice in that regard. But at the same time, I can see why some people would sort of deem me a little too just stuck in my ways and not really being open for change, which, I mean, I'd still be willing to check out a fair few, basically all this series has to offer going forward, and if it just doesn't turn out to be all that good like Final Horizons or Superstars was, I'll just go play something else. Just kind of seems that simple to me, though. What I've seen and at least heard of some of the discourse regarding this series, I don't think a lot of people really deem it as that being that simple. Well, so we're on the 4th race already. That's one thing I've noticed in particular in regards to this game, is it feels a lot faster than normal riders. To the point where, arguably, even though I haven't really tried Tournament Edition yet, I think, at least going from standard riders to this may be just my definitive way of playing it, which is sort of something which I've been wanting to touch on with this particular stream, the idea of how fan-made additions to a game just sort of alter your perspective on how you view a game. I think the best example for me would be Adventure 2. Because here I am just sort of championing Adventure 2 as sort of the highlight of the whole series. You know, at the same time, going back to the GameCube version a little while back, there were just a lot of things with the GameCube version which I just realized, oh no. There's so much stuff in the PC version I've taken for granted, which the GameCube version just struggles with. Like, obviously there's some stuff in the the PC version which I can sort of live without, like not having the drop dash on Sonic, or Amy's new tricks with stuff like, yeah, Amy's new tricks and all these sort of moveset additions, or physics changes to stuff like the walkers to make them a bit more wieldy. And I think most overtly and importantly, the hunting stage's radar. Like, going back to Mad Space in Adventure 2 Vanilla on GameCube felt like a nightmare compared to what it would have been on the PC version, where you actually just have all the emeralds on display on the radar. I mean, I get why the radar was made like that, but at the same time, it doesn't exactly make for the best hunting experience, to the point where I can't help but wonder, going back to it, whether or not I would consider Adventure DX to be a better game than Adventure 2 Battle out of the box. I mean, I know that's arguably sacrilegious to say, but it's something even back when I was younger I couldn't help but think about before I had the PC, when I was just sort of stuck with the, like, Xbox HD re-releases of the two games, which are arguably the worst versions of them. What I mean arguably, they are the worst versions of them. I will say I definitely did like how grandiose this final stage felt for the hero stages. Just the sand waterfall. It's just one of those things where this game just feels a lot bigger compared to games such as Frontiers in that regard. Just with how big and grandiose a lot of the set pieces is. Yeah, that checks out. I figured Tournament Edition would be the more comparatively focused, since it's in the name. But yeah, I would be down to checking it out, see how differently it fares. But granted, given how I've set up streams at this point, it's gonna be a little while until then. Anyways, let's move on to the Babylon Cup. And I think, yeah, let's go Super Shadow. As yes, we can go Super Shadow in this game. We go over to Super Form. And he actually has a Super Form, and I do find it kind of funny how he's just skating normally with his regular shoes. It's definitely a nice touch, but it just feels so surreal, just coming from the base game to this. Night Chase. Again, like Supersonic, Super Shadow also, I believe, has all the skill types. So he can grind, he can fly, and he can punch things. What's not so spectacular, though, is that compared to Supersonic, Super Shadow doesn't have unique animations. He just sort of stuck with his level 2 chaos fart here again. I didn't think I'd actually make that, wow. Also, that grinding shortcut is still not that great. Like, I know they've done a lot to sort of balance the shortcuts a fair bit more, but at the same time, it's not to the same degree. Also, fun little fact, they actually recognize that the moon is supposed to be broken. I was looking at chat. Okay, definitely sounds like something that I need to check out at some point, if I can find it. Out of the way, Jet. Also like how all the characters have upscaled portraits of, basically the menu models. I mean, menu portraits. So you don't just get low-res Jet just staring at you into your soul. I kind of like it. Definitely adds to the aesthetic of this game. Also, yeah, once again, a lot of the shortcuts have been amended so that they actually feel a lot more usable. Just not that particular grind rail for some reason. I'd say that's still definitely satisfying. Hey, Finon. Well, just, playing along to some of the Babylon Cups here. Not entirely certain how long this stream is going to go on for, but at the same time, I'm just sort of willing to mess around and enjoy it a little bit. Like, just look at the AI on this post-race screen. It just feels kind of inept. Like, that actually kind of reminds me of this one time I was playing the base game back on the PS2. Where I just sort of blitzed through a particular race on Sega Illusion, and then I went back to see the replay, and the replay was just the most inept thing, where it looked like I was just bumping into walls. I was just like, how do you manage to mess that up? I know that's probably something I may be misremembering, but at the same time it just stood out to me so much, and it was just one of those things that seemed kind of baffling in a way. Also definitely like how there's a fair few sort of Easter eggs with some of the texture changes here. Wow, they really did upgrade the grinding and flying shortcuts in this particular track. Because I know in the base game you can potentially get to, I believe, the that water wheel there from the dash rings that you normally fly over, but you have to be really sort of precise with how you fly. Whereas here it's definitely a little bit more easy and accessible. This definitely seems like the more accessible way to play Sonic Riders. Definitely would be down to trying out tournament version at some point. If I can find it. But yeah, I think... Yep, race is still going, race is still going. Just gotta think of more topics now. That's kind of awkward. Because I went on my whole little rant and tirade about Earnesty in this series, which I'm kind of surprised that there wasn't that much pushback on. And I suspect if there were more people watching, there would be a fair bit of backlash, because there always is. Because it really does feel, from my understanding, that a lot of the community is just split on absolutely everything, to the point where we can't even agree on a game we all like. Like, I know some people were all just sort of championing a fair while back about how Sonic Heroes is the best Sonic game of all time, but going through the GameCube version recently, I couldn't just help think, really? You really think this is the best Sonic game? With its jank grinding mechanics and borderline cringy English dialogue? and having to play through the same game with minimal changes 4 times. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do definitely enjoy playing Heroes, but at the same time, I wouldn't call it the best Sonic game ever made. Okay, I'd be more willing to put Frontiers up on that pedestal, but even then I'd say Frontiers was aight. Just aight. Definitely improved with Update 2. Basically just, if you ignore Final Horizon, I'd say Frontiers is definitely one of the stronger releases in the series, even though I wouldn't say its content suite is exactly on par with some of my personal favorites. Like, even going back to stuff like Heroes, even that had stuff you unlocked with emblems. Sort of in the cat that sort of leads me to wonder whether or not emblems should come back in the series at some point. Because even though it was fairly simple, it definitely added a lot to the game, I'd say. Just, here's this thing you get awarded for as you go through the game, and as you go through the game, the more you get, the more rewards you get. Even if it was just something simple like Sonic Labyrinth. There was at least something to strive for, and at the end you got, at the very least, a neat little thing to play with, whether it's Green Hill in SA2, Metal Sonic in SA1, or I guess Super Hard Mode if you're really into that thing in Heroes and Shadow. Yeah, it's kind of crazy coming back to this game, because I remembered it being pretty good, and even now, aside from just sort of a lack of tracks, I'd say there wasn't strictly anything grievously wrong with this game. It's just, I know a lot of people just sort of say this is the best Sonic game to come out of 2006, in a way that is more indicative of that's not saying much, given that its competition was 06 and Genesis. But I'd say even on its own merits, aside from the lack of tracks, it's kind of decent, and I'm kind of disappointed that a lot of stuff in this game just didn't get improved upon. Because apparently this series is allergic to just sticking with what works. I mean, that's definitely a hard claim, going up against the likes of every single Mario Kart, every single F-Zero game, every single Forza race car game you can imagine. That would definitely be a hard sell. It's that sort of thing, really, where sure, a Sonic game may be good compared to all the other Sonic games, but even then, when, for the most part, you just compare it to all the other games out there in the gaming landscape, it just doesn't really seem to come up close. Like, I think the best example I could think of, again, was Heroes, where everyone says it's the best Sonic game, if not the best game ever made, in a year that saw the release of Snake Eater, GTA San Andreas, Halo 2, Half-Life 2, World of Warcraft. You get what I mean, don't you? Just... And it's definitely a lot more overt back in sort of the earlier days of gaming, when there was just banger after banger after banger coming out, compared to now where AAA gaming has just sort of died. Like, even going back as recently as Sonic Forces, you had Mario Odyssey, you had Breath of the Wild, you had Cuphead, you had Sonic Mania. Just so many good games coming out 2017, where you're just left wondering, why would I ever pick up Forces unless I just change myself to this particular series, which honestly I just wouldn't say is generally very healthy. Like, there's other games out there. Just so much stuff which I've just honestly wanted to sort of get out about this series. I will say that this particular next level I always thought was cool. I mean, I probably already mentioned it, but at the same time, it's just definitely, excuse me, definitely striking to me. This just seemed like a very cool, like, addition. Even back when I first played, like, even just the image of the eclipse just at the starting line. I mean, to be fair, it's just banger after banger coming from the indie market as opposed to the AAA market. But it does sort of lead me to wonder if indies and AA titles are going to be sort of the big future of gaming. Where exactly is Sonic going to fit into all of that? Because one thing that I will say I've definitely been sort of worried about is the, I suppose for lack of a better word, corporatization of the Sonic series, where everything has to be mandated and everything has to be canon and everything has to fit in just right, which at one point I'm sure I would have been fine with, but given just the wide array of different interpretations of this series, there's just some which are absolutely incongruent with each other, so you just have to sort of pick and choose the stuff that all fits together best, I'd say. Like, even in Frontiers, with a lot of the game's events that are name-dropped in Frontiers, I'm pretty sure a lot of those just don't mash up 100% fully. The obvious one that comes to mind for me is obviously I suppose a lot of stuff with Generations, even though there's no real concrete evidence as to where that particular silver came from, considering the events of 06 never happened, and I'm not 100% certain whether or not Rivals is canon or not. I'd suspect it isn't, considering its conflicts with Sonic Rush, which everyone else seems to be a big fan of. Also, I'm not sure if it's just me, but Super Shadow seems weirdly more efficient with his ring use. May just be me just blasting through a lot of these tracks as fast as I am. That went by a lot quicker than I was anticipating, to be honest. Yeah, one thing which is also to note is that everything comes unlocked, and yet it doesn't really do much in terms of saving. It doesn't really touch the memory card at all unless you actually load up an existing save file, mostly just to save on navigating through menus. So, since we've gone through all of these tracks and we've seen how they've been changed, I think we'll start off on Sky Road. And I want to showcase, well, we have 3 more super... well, it says 4 more super forms to technically go through, so we'll start off with Tails, with my favorite color palette, and if we look here to super form, he actually gets a little bit of a color change, in that he is a little bit more of a yellow with red eyes. It's obviously more of a fan interpretation of a Tails super form, but it is definitely one which I appreciate nonetheless, even though it's... The interesting little thing about Super Tails, Super Knuckles, and Super Amy is that technically they sort of make up a little bit of a trio, in that they're both dual types, unlike Super Sonic and Super Shadow, who have all 3 types. These 3 only have access to 2. For Tails, he keeps his flight ability, but also, if we come over here, and not fall off like a clumsy ox. Yeah, he can grind. He doesn't get the ability to break through stuff at all. He's just able to grind now, and he doesn't even get any of his birds to kill all the other racers. Here we go, here's a good example. Also, they moved the rail in this particular track, so you couldn't just get an immediate advantage if you were using a speed character. A small change, which I definitely do understand for game balance, but I definitely kind of miss that little oddity of the original Riders, how you can just... They're just these small little things which you can use to just sort of barter advantage. I fell too early. Yeah, I will admit this never was exactly my favorite track in the whole game. I also love how fast a lot of these set pieces are now, just to make up for the fact that you basically just get all your air back as though you were just rotating your controller at like 5,000 RPM. Yeah, as you probably noticed, the Babylon Garden here seems to take a lot more design cues from Night Palace from Secret Rings, and honestly, I did definitely say that I definitely got Secret Rings vibes from this place. I definitely dig it. I just think it's cool. Like, I think this is actually at least fairly similar to the skybox from the weird illusory parts of Night Palace, where you were actually just running across, like, glass. I always thought those parts looked particularly cool. I want to say Babylon Garden for last for one particular reason, so... We've already gone Sega Carnival, let's go Sega Illusion, and I think... Yeah, we'll just go Amy. I think if we, after this, after I've showcased all the super forms, we'll just go and experiment around with the other characters and just goof around with some of the more wild and crazy gears. So we'll just go with Knuckles, we'll go Enerjack, or I suppose just, Pender's Knuckles. And he's pink! They went with Than route, where the interpretation of his super form is that it was just pink, as opposed to just him glowing a lighter red whenever he was in super/hyper form. In hindsight, I am kind of disappointed that there wasn't a notable change with Hyper Knuckles compared to Hypersonic. Like, even if it was just green Knuckles, there would at least be something. Also, a nice little tidbit which I've noticed in particular with Super Knuckles is that he gets 3 consecutive boosts compared to everyone else. Just a little tidbit I found particularly odd. This may not be the best track to showcase it on, but I'll try my best to showcase it once we actually do get the chance. And there you see, you actually get rings back on air capsules. 1. I only pressed the boost button once there. I suppose it's mostly to give you more opportunities to just punch stuff, but it's more so just a fun little tidbit which I find kind of gives Knuckles a little bit more personality. I kind of wish they had more stuff like this for lots more members of the cast, actually. Just want to pause here just so we can actually see the stuff on the walls here. Like, we got Unleashed, we got Chow in Space, we got Mania, we got Unleashed again. It's definitely a blink and you'll miss it moment, but at the same time it's just super weird to have all these Sonic games which came out after Riders in this game. I suppose in a way it's sort of like all the mission modes for Adventure DX, where you had advertisements for Sonic Pinball Party and Advance 2 and Sonic X. It just felt super weird. in hindsight, just going back and seeing all that after seeing the original, or at least a closer facsimile to the original Sonic Adventure with the PC version. I will be honest, I kind of feel compelled at some point to actually stream SADX, just to see all the gloss and actually showcase off the mission mode, which I didn't do last time, because, let's face it, the mission mode in SADX wasn't exactly the highlights of the game. Okay, I think... Also we get Bayonetta music here, which definitely is quite the interesting addition. We'll go Super Amy, because yes, Amy actually does get a super form here, which is definitely... I know it's something that a lot of fans have been clamoring for. It kind of just reminds me more so of Pan from Dragon Ball GT, where like Toriyama and we're like, oh yeah, Pan can definitely go Super Saiyan, but she never does. Honestly, I never really got the whole mandate behind the super forms about saying, oh, only male hedgehogs can go super form, which... I mean, not even getting into any of the inclusivity issues which some people might have, is just ultimately limits a lot of what the other cast can do, because you know just for a fact that when it comes to sort of like the big major events, like I think the biggest one which sticks out in my mind is Metal Virus, you basically know that by the end no one is going to be able to do anything to resolve the problem outside of Sonic, Shadow, Silver, and whoever they deign to allow. Also, yeah, I forgot to mention with regards to the dual types, Tails was speed and flying, Knuckles was flying and power, and Amy is speed and power, as you can probably tell. Definitely makes sense given Knuckles' glide and Amy's hammer. I suppose just Tails mostly just got the short end of the stick in that case. It's like, well, we need a speed and flying type. Yes, we'll just put that on Tails. One thing I definitely do appreciate about this particular texture change in this map is just the Chow theming. I know it definitely seems like a small thing, but it just feels... It's just one of those things that make it feel more, I suppose, in fitting with how the world is set up, how nebulous the world is. Like, Digital Dimension normally is just a super weird, out of place little area, which is demented demon ghost hands looking to drag you to hell down below, and just all these chains here. At least here, there's just something to make you think, oh yeah, this is Sonic related, as opposed to just being something like out of Devil May Cry. It's definitely a cool level. It's just, again, like Frontiers, not exactly in fitting with the visual language of this series. Which is something I think I've noticed a lot more of us Western fans seem to take more of an issue with. Just the whole visual language this game, this series has, with where you gotta have Sonic and Tails and Knuckles and Amy and Shadow and Eggman, and they're all part of the game's aesthetic and tapestry, and it's all in order. Compared to that, to say, you know what, let's just do Babylon Garden, why not? There's a particular, there's one more super form we need to go through, and it's obviously... Oh yeah, let me just point something out before we continue. We got this little goober over here, whoever he is. Silver? Yeah. He doesn't get a super form, but Amy does. And even better, Metal Sonic technically does as well. It's like, everyone in this game, aside from Silver, has a super form. But just like in more recent games, Silver fans are just constantly getting scraps. They're just... Silver's constantly getting shafted. Honestly, can't help but feel it's kind of comical at this point. Also, instead of a more conventional super form, we get Neo Metal. Of course, I haven't really mentioned Neo Metal yet. In terms of his typing, just like Super Sonic and Super Shadow, he's all 3 types. Except, given that he's technically not a super form, he doesn't have ring drain. He's more just sort of a more he's not a ring gear, he just uses more conventional air gears. So it's more sort of just a souped up character skin. Which also just happens to get all 3 types. Also, unlike Super Sonic and Super Shadow, I think Metal is mostly just confined to level 1. Could be wrong about that. Also, yeah, they changed the location of these flying rings, where in the base game they were kind of useless. Here they just allow you to bypass that infamously difficult corner, which is nice. Yeah, you see Metal doesn't have any level ups, which I suppose balances him out a little bit. Oh, that's actually kind of cool. I was sort of wondering as to whether or not this game had Super Neo Metal. Because that's one thing that I was discussing with some friends earlier. Just the fact that in Heroes, Metal Sonic, even in his game where he peaks, kind of gets shafted. Because, like, in his base, I suppose, base Neo Metal form, he's technically a T-1000 with all the abilities of all the galaxies, all the series' strongest characters. Got all the data from Sonic, Shadow, Knuckles, etc. Meaning, in a way, I may be stretching with this, but it really feels like Neo Metal is sort of like this series' equivalent of Perfect Cell. And just that he has just the most cracked potential of any character in the series, but just like Cell, Metal Sonic gets shafted, though arguably worse than Cell in that regard, considering Cell mostly stayed dead, aside from I think Fusion Reborn and in GT. I'm not including Cell Max. But then again, in GT and Fusion Reborn, Cell kinda got shafted pretty badly. Just sort of being one of the mooks that all the other cast that aren't Goku and Vegeta just have to contend with, along with Hitler. Because I still can't believe they just pulled that card in Fusion Reborn. Anyway, yeah, that was Neo Metal, and I think given we only have one track left, we may as well go off with the other final super form, which I neglected to showcase. As, yeah, all these characters get the super form boost, but none of the type change. They all remain one type. You just get the aura, the ring drive, and the performance boost. The other character super form which I wanted to showcase was Sonic. Again, we've already seen the Super Sonic, but if you go over to for the Chaos Emerald, you press Y button, Hypersonic. This was before Frontiers came out, or at the very least Final Horizon, so... Unfortunately, no Super Sonic 2. Actually, I want to get the proper music for this, as I completely forgot to do that. Yeah, you can... Definitely like some of the music choices they got for the menu here. Yeah, we're just gonna go for Hypersonic again. No Super Amy or Super Silver in Tournament Edition. It's like... Even adding fan characters, Silver just gets shafted constantly. It's hilarious. Anyways, Hypersonic. Also Dark Sonic. That doesn't sound right. Hold up. Just gonna keep re-rolling this until we get the music we want. As I think it changes with every retry. Come on. We get this nice little version of the Sonic 3 final boss here. I completely forgot you can actually look back in this. Don't do this to me, game. Give me live and learn. I want live and learn. Don't screw me up like this. You know what I want.
Behold the power of the Chaos Emeralds.
There we go. Now we're in business. Now you can see how quickly I melt this boss. Just like that. I'm gonna say, actually playing through this competitively must be just kind of bonkers. Also, yeah, the main contention with Hypersonic is I think he does get a performance boost similar to Supersonic, though it's a lot more cracked, or just sort of souped up, and he gets more vanilla Supersonic ring drain. It's definitely more noticeable on the drift. Look at that, it's 20 rings just gone like that. And if we drift, I slurp up rings like a $5 milkshake, I don't know. It's kind of funny that we actually just get live and learn on this particular track, even though it's kind of the most simplistic and borderline underwhelming. Like, I don't think it really helps that we're much faster in TX, but at the same time, can't help but find it kind of funny. Like, we're just gonna clear this race before we can even get to, like, the bridge of this song. Like, yeah, needless to say, this track isn't exactly the most, difficult. Kind of a wonder, because I know there's a, modded version of Zero Gravity as well. It'd be interesting to see how that fares. And how different Mobius Strip is. Anyways, I think, given the time, I was gonna just go for the story mode, but I think I'm kind of more compelled to just mess around with some of the other gear, so we're just gonna do that. We'll start off in Metal City and just work our way through. From what I can tell, this is the speedrun stat here, where we have Jet, who was good with top speed. That's another thing as well with the retexturing here. It actually gives you more information about the stats. Like here we have Amy, who's good at drifting. Knuckles, who gets boost chain. I think the Twist is more stuff like Twist and Flatten is more sort of the effects of their attacks. Like Tails has Shock, Sonic has Crush. Chaos and Berserker. I'll try that after this, because right now I want to try Jet with Advantage S, just to showcase this off. I mentioned before how this was a running gear, and I think Jet might be the best one for it, so... let's do a little bit more showcasing. I would say this particular setup fits well aesthetically at the very least, and you can see right there, the air consumption on these boots has been cracked to an absurd degree, especially when you boost. It just keeps draining and doesn't stop. And now we're just sort of running. Let's see how fast we can go. Obviously, at level 1 we're just stuck at the base 200, which... I mean, considering I'm guessing that's miles per hour, it's still pretty fast. Even there, just slurps up ring air like nothing I've ever seen. Like, I don't think even the air rider was this air hungry. Also, I will admit I do kind of like that, there's little animations there. Even though I'm not entirely certain whether or not it makes the most sense for him to be doing that with skates. Anyways, here we go, let's get up to speed. He's running at 240 miles an hour. I'm guessing that's in kilometers, though. Still kind of impressive. Also, I like the fact that you can actually jump whilst running. That's a nice little touch. Though drifting with these definitely puts me off a little bit, just... Oh hey, you're drifting. Oh, you've run out of air, now you're just going into the wall. Like, you can't help but wonder what a Sonic racing game would be like if you were just on foot. I mean, there's technically Sonic R, but I don't think anybody talks about Sonic R anymore outside of the soundtrack. Anyways, you said Chaos and Berserker, so let's have a look with Chaos and Berserker. I also like the fact that even on the select screen right there for Night Chase, it actually showcases the broken moon, because they remembered the moon is actually supposed to be destroyed. Here we go, Berserker. I think the performance type here is more just sort of, I would say all-round, but there is already an all-round type, so... I will admit I'm still not 100% certain on a lot of the character terms. I just know that there are different classes that do slightly different things, just to sort of differentiate them a little bit. I think this also means that Cream technically isn't the worst character in the game anymore, though... I'm guessing she still technically is. I mean, you say Lava Chaos. I've said previously before this is technically more so based off the Dark Chaos Chow from Adventure 2. But even so, I definitely do like a lot of these Power Editions. I think they're full of cool and interesting references. Also, I will say it definitely feels a fair bit easier to actually get big jumps and do big tricks here. May just be me being used to the game, though. I gotta say, though, this is definitely quite the potent combo. Just how you get free boost whenever you punch through things. I know there's technically a gear for that, but it's cool nonetheless. Oh, that's a new camera angle. I don't even know whether or not this rear view is in the base game. It's been so long, and I've never really felt the urge to actually use it. But at the same time, definitely a cool addition if it is exclusive to this. Oh yeah, with the boost here you would just go into auto-attacking, wouldn't you? Yeah, I can definitely see why you'd think this board is pretty good. I mean, it definitely, I'm sure, feels a lot better than its base board, which... are the bikes any good? People don't seem to use power types. I'd assume most people think that a lot of power types don't get that many good shortcuts on these. Like, a lot of the shortcuts on some of these tracks do definitely seem to be quite underwhelming. I'd say they definitely sort of peak on levels like Metal City, Night Chase, the factory levels. Oh yeah, there are rule settings here. Let's have a look at the rules. I'll keep the announcer. You know what? Let's see what happens when I put the announcer on. Okay, we'll go... we'll go Splash Canyon again, just to see whoever this guy is. And let's see what interesting stuff we have to go off of. Because I know there were some interesting gears I went over. Uses rings as fuel, cannot boost. Hold boost to continue boosting with the Sonic Unleashed one. Berserk mode, crazy. Games are passively legend. I could just show off the light board. Drive gear accelerator. I haven't used accelerator. Let's give that a whirl. Then again, I haven't really seen what most people tend to use for tournament modes. Or just, DX tourneys in general. Wait, I meant to showcase Silver's animations. It's like, I forgot to mention Chaos definitely has, reused Knuckles animations, whereas Silver obviously uses Knights's. As we'll see as we get on into this, particular track. Also, yeah, they moved the dash rings there at the start to actually make it so you can land on those, as well as the dash rings here. They're basically the same as they were in that one mission mode, so it actually feels more like a shortcut, even though obviously going through the rapids there, your speed has been increased, so it doesn't make too much of a difference. Also, yeah, that definitely feels quite a hefty boost. And all for 5 rings, wow. Sort of makes me think that just going for hypersonic isn't innately the wisest choice, in that there's actually a point to using more boards than just the super form. But that does sort of lead me to wonder to something that I've been thinking of fairly recently. Given how Silver's sort of been handled in more modern times, whereas I suppose once again been relegated to either comic-only feats or side games like the Olympics ones, I can't help but wonder, considering I think how Silver does or doesn't fit in the modern version of... I say modern, the more modern version of the series. Like, it's kind of obvious that Silver as a character mostly peaked during 06, where he had his best character moments and basically achieved his goal in changing and saving the future. Technically speaking, though, I still wonder, since Sonic and Elise basically erased the events of 06, whether or not Silver was even born. Again, you could say the rival Silver, but again, I'm not 100% certain because the whole Eggman Nega thing. Let's see what else we got in store for us. You know what, let's play as Finnervous Knuckles on the cover S. Because I want to try out this constant non-stop boost, and I think Knuckles will be good for it.
The race to prove who's the best begins now.
Because this track seems to like power types. Also, definitely going under the assumption that this particular color palette was based off of Thinidivus from the Archie comics, because I know this given Scourge is also here, this mod isn't exactly afraid of making Archie references. Oh yeah, that's kind of nuts. Oh! Oh baby! Oh baby, it just doesn't stop. It just keeps going. I didn't think this would be as wild a change as it was, but wow. It just keeps going. And now I'm all out of air. Somehow nailed that. That actually reminds me of something that I wanted to cover as well with regards to this game, which I'll probably do once I've finished with this particular race, though I suppose thinking more in terms of Archie, I've seen at least a couple of reviews of one of the classic Archie books with regard, I think it was Mega Drive. Oh, hey John. Yeah, it was a view of Mega Drive, and one of the main points of contention was that a lot of the... Just look how big Knuckles' fists are on this bike. It looks so silly. Yeah, one of the main contention points, I believe, was how a lot of the characters weren't really written all that well. Mostly Tails, Amy, and Sonic. And given they were also written by Ian Flynn, I'm sort of starting to wonder whether it was just the case that Ian somehow gaslit everyone into thinking he was a good writer. I mean, I know a lot of people have said he's written a lot of good stuff for the main Archie canon. At the whole end with a resurgence of, I think it was the Death Egg 2? The one where Sally got herself roboticized? I know a lot of people like that particular arc, and I'm definitely sure Ian has made a lot of good stories in his tenure with this series, but it's one of those things where I can't help but wonder whether or not he really was as good as everybody says he was. And especially considering how he tends to approach a lot of fan discourse with a lot of, a fair bit of disdain and gaslighting. Like, I think the best example was when someone wrote in as to saying, "Oh hey, you write Metal Sonic like a jobber now," and he's like, "Well, that's just because you don't... That's because you see Metal Sonic a lot more compared to when you did in the 90s. It's a you problem, not a me problem." Even though I wrote it. I know I'm just sort of doing a very light summary of that, but that's how, at least to me, it came across. Anyways, Eggman. He gets his own version of the default gear, which is nice. Also like how it's based off his SA1 Eggmobile. That's always cute to see. And he also gets access to every single other board in the game. Would you like to see how it handles Eggman on, say for instance, the Advantage P?
Do you think you can beat me?
Yeah, it's basically just the textures for all the extreme gears on bikes. Which I can't help but find just a little bit funny. Anyways, I think for this one we'll go with the light board, because I've been meaning to showcase that off. Yeah, the light board here just uses the E-Rider model from my understanding, and just
The countdown has begun.
has the light board's textures. Oh hey, rhythm and balance.
Do you think you can beat me?
Fitting to go along with the Dean Bristow voice lines. Stolen directly from Adventure 2's multiplayer. feels so surreal having a light board that's a bike. I kind of wish that you actually got the bike model available for every single other character, just, at the very least for style points. Like, I definitely use them, just as a means of changing stuff up. Like, this could even be the perfect excuse to actually include a version of Shadow's Dark Rider. Or at least a close facsimile of it. Yeah, as you can see, the light board basically retains its ability to just retain its boost speed as its top speed. Again, I love the fact that I actually just lent into that particular aspect of the board rather than just nerfing it into the ground. It just feels so refreshing to see, just them seeing all these particular quirks from the boards and just remaining somewhat truthful and faithful to them and just boosting everything else up to match. It may just be because I've been playing a fair bit of Helldivers recently, but it's a refreshing outlook to have. Also, 90% certain that the Omochao announcer balloon that you see constantly flying by, I'm fairly certain that's just from the hero special stages. And just lifted that and put it in here like, yep, that'll do. Oh yeah, that's also a neat little thing that I neglected to mention. If you fall off the track in this game, you retain your rings. Just feels like a very nice quality of life addition to this game. I'm not sure if I... Again, I'd probably have to see what Tournament Edition is about to say whether or not that or this is the definitive version, but in terms of just a casual gameplay experience, I'd definitely say this is a step up. Anyways, I think with messing around with that, I think we're gonna see what the story mode is about. I think we just skip through a few of the cutscenes, but I do definitely want to see if any of the changes made it through. Okay, I don't think they have. You can still see the default, you can still see the SADX screenshot there. Where can I find more art? I think I left the link to the artist's YouTube channel in the description, considering that's the main one which is acceptable within the guidelines as far as I'm aware. They do definitely have a lot of artwork credited to them, but again, they do definitely get a lot of commissions, so if you want something, you'll be waiting a while. Also, wow, the AI here seems to be a fair bit more aggressive. May just be me, though. Again, I don't think we're going to spend too much time on the cutscenes since I've already gone through the story mode once, so I think we're just going to focus on the races. Just see where we go from there. Okay, now we actually got up to speed a little bit. Now we're starting to see something more akin to Vanilla Riders. We just sort of leave the competition in the dust. And look at that, you just instantly crushed the robot there. He's now a pancake. Also, yeah, a lot of the, or at least some of the grinding routes, as you probably noticed, have been sped up a little, so they actually feel like shortcuts, as opposed to just you wasting your time. I will say I was thinking that I'd have to get a little bit more used to not slowing down when you charge up a jump, but So far, it's felt surprisingly natural. Just thinking in terms of what else may have been changed about that game, this game, I don't think the tutorial has been changed at all, so we don't have to go through that again. Boy, oh boy. Yeah, I think we just skip through all this. I think I'm just gonna go through this particular story mode, and I think we'll leave it there, because I think I've covered, aside from some of the more wacky and crazy gears, I think I've covered basically all the things that I wanted to cover with this. I may be forgetting something though, so by all means remind me if you want. Definitely feels satisfying actually getting off those jumps right, and you just have a party with your thumb. Okay, that's actually kind of neat with how the waterfall works. That particular flying shortcut still remains kind of relevant. As I was sort of worried with that particular shortcut whether or not you just instantly end up in last place anyways, as everyone outruns you on the rapids. Because that always happened in the original version of that particular shortcut. Whereas here it actually feels like something you'd want to use rather than skip. Again, I'll have to check tournament version to see how it deals with the shortcuts, but I imagine it may be a bit more comprehensive. Possibly. I'll have to check. I'll have to check. Basically, that's the whole takeaway from this stream. I'll have to check out Tournament Edition, but it will likely just be in my own time, because I don't think there's really much for me to that I've already gone through here for me to go over in that yeah. Blech. It's kind of interesting that they included Nazo though. Like, it's been such a long time since I've heard that name, aside from the unfortunately unfinished sequel animatic which came out recently, where the creator was just saying that he couldn't really keep up with it due to work demands from his job, and that's one of those things that just hit me right in the feels. Still nice we get the soundtrack changes even in here. Like, even in story mode you get some random inclusions of other tracks in the series. Also, I love the fact that one of Knuckles' main attacks is just shouting at you. Oh yeah, here's where we can actually see purple mode in action, where you just ignore turbulence. And not enemies still. Like, right... that particular attack screwed me over. It's like right here, normally I would have just been carried over through the turbulence, but here I can actually do whatever I want still. And make it through this particular shortcut and make my way back into the lead. It's nice. I'll say back into the lead. It would be definitely awkward if we had this sort of really super competitive race between Knuckles and Storm, and they just lose to a random robot. Still feel compelled to say robot after the the old Mega Man Hanna-Barbera cartoon. I really should go back and watch some more of that at some point. Like, I imagine it was a Hanna-Barbera production, so charming, possibly, to say the least. The only real episode I've really seen of that is a commentary some people did on Curse of the Lion Men, arguably one of the worst episodes. I think mostly just from a "this is stupid" standpoint. Didn't even know that was possible there. Basically, Curse of the Lion Man, getting back to that, just lost my train of thought for a second. Basically, the whole gimmick was I think, Dr. Wowie or some of his robots just uncovered this ancient curse, which just turned everyone into lion anthros, which I'm sure was just some awakening for certain people, even though I could easily just say it's not for me, it wasn't an awakening for me, considering I didn't grow up with the Mega Man cartoon, but I'm sure you wouldn't believe me anyway. I was doing way cooler tricks than that just 15 seconds earlier, Tails. I will admit there's certain tracks in here which I likely wouldn't have heard before. We just remember to actually put on purple mode. It's definitely a nice little addition, I will say. There have been so many times in Vanilla Riders when I'm in this position where I'm trying to reach a shortcut to get past a particular racer, and it's like, nope, turbulence. You stay behind this particular racer like a good little boy. Like, even here, looking at some particular parts of this track, like even when you just spring up into the sky at the end. Even there, this game just still has that crazy sense of scale to it that Heroes did, which somehow Frontiers just lacks. I think it's because compared to a lot of areas here, Starfall Islands just feel very finite in the sense that they are islands. You're eventually just gonna run out of land to go across eventually, and at that point you're just... there's just nothing but sea to behold. It's not like here where there's just sort of crazy massive expanses of forest or desert or city where you can just imagine it going on forever and ever. Nope, it's just sea. It's just ocean. Look, imagine if we had, I suppose we call it Frontiers 2 at this point. Imagine if in Frontiers 2 we got areas with this sort of sense of scale to it. Also, I'd be down for seeing that, though. On the subject of development, see the scale there. On the subject of development, it is kind of weird hearing news that apparently Sonic X Shadow Generations has finished development. It's like, a Sonic game being finished is something you never ever hear. It's mostly just being rushed out to meet deadlines where the game is finished like 15 days before it needs to go out to market, but here it's like they've gone with a very Nintendo-esque approach to it. I've seen a lot of people describe it as. We'll just have months for sort of marketing and quality testing. Which, if this just becomes the norm for this series, then I'd be down for that. But at the same time, I am a little bit worried, because I know that there was the announcement that they were going to be doing, that Sega was planning on doing, like, annual Sonic releases, because obviously that went so well back in the 2000s. I mean, it's one of those things where I suppose it sort of feeds into that whole mentality of, if a game is good, I'll get it. If it's not, I can just skip it and play something else, which I suppose in that metric I'm okay with it. It's just someone who can more so casually just peek in and out of the series as they will. But again, annual releases, I can't help but wonder what that would do for quality, considering how infamous Sega and Sonic Team have been for that in the past. I know that compared to especially 2000s and 2010s, there's been a bit more of an emphasis put on Sonic, given how successful Frontiers and the movies were, with Sega actually pricking their ears up and saying, oh hey, this thing is actually marketable, it's actually something we can make a profit off of. Let's actually try pushing it a little. I can't help but feel, given how stuff like 06 and Rise of Lyric Rents, I can't help but feel that something is going to go wrong with this whole setup, and Sonic's momentum is just going to get killed in its tracks again. Oh, the cutscene actually works this time. For some reason I wasn't expecting that. Yeah, we can skip this. I'd still say this cutscene still looks good. Like, obviously it's not made for HD TVs. I mean, you say that, but at the same time I wouldn't say it's was specifically 06 that ruined Sonic's reputation. It was more sort of the 1-2-3 punch of Shadow, 06, and Secret Rings coming out basically on top of each other, just 3 different layers of bad games, which just sort of compounded and just sort of screwed Sonic's reputation for basically nigh on 15 years actually. Yeah, there's certainly that, but at the same time, one thing which I've noticed a lot of people saying about the likes of Frontiers is people saying that it's a step in the right direction. We've been saying games have been a step in the right direction since Unleashed back in 2008. Okay, we're in space now, apparently. Still think that little pike is ridiculous, and I will say, whilst Shadow, at least when I played Reloaded, was better than I remember it being, I think it's that same thing again of mods making a game out to be better than it actually was. Because there's definitely a lot about the Shadow game which I still don't like in hindsight, like some of the mission designs, obviously, the general level of polish, which is sort of a given with this series. Also, I can't help but notice that the Blue Star 2 is just a massive step up in terms of performance. Like, wow. I can actually feel myself going faster than with the Blue Star 1.
Emergency alert. Emergency alert.
So I'm just trying to make out what the music is supposed to be. Because I know there's a particular good track which I'd like to end on. Never get the chance. Wait, is that actually Jet in front? It is Jet in front. Oh, I have a score to settle with you, Prince of all thieves. Let's... I was looking at chat, sorry. I'm just thinking, since Shadow came out in 2005, I'm trying to think of what other games came out in 2005. The main one that just comes to mind in my memory is Kingdom Hearts 2. Which, I mean, despite it being the base version of Kingdom Hearts 2, I'd rather play that over Shadow. Maybe it was just me being incredibly bitter about some of the particular missions designs, because I'm pretty sure I mentioned a lot of my experience with The Doom as being sort of just that one level which I can't really stand, to the point where I didn't play it at all when I streamed Shadow Reloaded. I think it's mostly because of that and just skipped all the bad missions that it's I had a better time with it. I mean, aside from that one on Space Gadget Dark, which... that was annoying. But yeah, the skybox of this place really is kind of trippy, with just how it circles two different ways. This looks super, super trippy. I kind of like it. Well, that was fairly simple. And we get to see Amy beat Sonic up again. Oh, we're no longer in space now. What's up with that?
Even without wings, I can still fly.
That line, despite it being super, super cheesy, just reminds me of this one video I saw recently where you had people trying to guess whether particular lines were from Sonic games or Weezer songs. And in that regard, seeing some of the lines this series has pulled out, I kind of missed that, in all honesty. Oh, San Andreas was 2005. I thought it was 2004. Yeah, Resident Evil 4 as well, wow. I mean, obviously Shadow isn't in Resident Evil 4. I mean... oh wait, you could potentially mod Shadow into San Andreas, because I know a lot of people just made bootleg mods for San Andreas, which were mostly just kept model swaps. There was a fairly infamous one where I think it was Vegeta. I think that was one.
Hey, catch! What? I lost.
At least that's the one that springs out in mind for me.
I don't want your pity, nor do I need it.
What? Are you crazy? If they don't want it, then let's take it. Treasure is treasure.
Alright, time to go get eaten by a genie again. See ya, Jet.
I think it's time to leave now. Tails?
Yeah.
Yeah, this whole expertise was basically just pointless. We're down Chaos Emeralds again.
Amy?
How could you dive into Eggman knowing I was there?
I also find it super weird that Amy just has her standard outfit in this game, and yet you don't get a chance to race with it.
And,
So here we go, time for more cartoon domestic violence. I mean, I say that, I know a lot of people sort of conflate this with domestic violence in some way, shape, or form, but again, I think a lot of people are sort of adverse to the Sonic cast being referred to as cartoon characters. I think mostly due to the stigma that comes with that of them being innately kiddie, and being unable to take them seriously at all, and not being allowed to have more meaningful stories accredited to them. Which I think just goes back to what I was saying previously about earnesty. Like, you have so many people who are big into, say, the My Little Pony series, Friendship is Magic, and taking that super seriously despite them all being pastel-colored horses. And then you get to the thing with the jar and it's all ruined. I don't think we've quite gotten to a jar moment with this series, surprisingly, though I'm guessing there's just some elements of this particular series that are just sort of best left buried. I think we'll just wrap this up with one more race. Just thinking, who should we go with? Obviously we're gonna pick Rouge, considering I have her outfit. I was thinking which of these gears looks pretty interesting to go off of. We've already done Berserker. Don't really feel compelled to do Hovercraft. You know what? I meant to try out Air Broom. Let's try out Air Broom. Actually, let me just get that. You know what? I'm just gonna go with the default, considering I think, personally, it looks the best. Okay, let's just get Air Broom. And we're gonna try and get his world. For one particular reason. It's the Zebra Head version. I haven't heard this since made an AMV back in 2008. Let's go! Great start. So from my understanding... Oh yeah, I also like the particle effects on the Air Broom. It lost its grinding ability, great. So yeah, that's one thing that I can't help but wonder with the Air Broom here. Whether or not there's actually any point of using this... I mean, using the trap gear, if this does exactly what it does and can also just boost. Like, I'm guessing that there's something that the trap gear can do, which this broom cannot, but at the same time... Still kind of feel that there's some gears in here which could be, I suppose, more brought up to tact. Also, yeah, it seems as though Tornado Boost also... whilst giving you a shorter boost and not allowing you to auto-attack. Dude, I suppose that's the main thing. I think the Tornado Boost on the trap gear may give you the actual boost state, whereas here, just the Air Broom just sort of propels you forward. Just thinking back to this track, man. It just sort of it feels like that one particular music track before all the Titan themes for Frontiers came out, which you just listen to all those imaginary fights inside your head, imaginary fight scenes, or more likely than not just, like I said, AMVs of whether it be a particular sprite series or a particular game. Just this particular version of his world I always sort of associated with AMVs. You know, along sort of the normal Linkin Park ones. Weirdly enough, I haven't really seen any for the Titan themes, but... well, basically any of the Titan themes outside of Find Your Flame. And maybe the End Supreme version of I'm Here from Final Horizon. Like the one good thing to come from that expansion. Well, that was certainly a thing. Just thought that was a particularly neat addition to that particular track, but I think aside from that, there's not really much else for me to really cover in this. Because I think for the most part, tag mode, survival mode are the same. Mission mode is in this still. All the stuff is unlocked, but none of the missions are completed. Again, it's like, all the stuff in here is unlocked, but none of the progress has been made towards it, weirdly enough, so... Obviously it's mostly so you can just drop in and play it however you like, but... Again, it's just sort of weird for me to see, being so used to the original version. Like I said, this may possibly be my definitive version of Sonic Riders to pick up and play, though again I'll have to pick up tournament mode at some point and see how that fares. But if I do end up streaming tournament mode at any point, it probably won't be for a long time, as I think I've dwelt on this game for a fair while, and I think it's time for me to finally move on next week to Final Fantasy VII. But until then, I'll see you then. Take care. Bye-bye.